What's up everybody, welcome back. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment on these videos. It really helps a lot. And if you like the content, please do share. It helps the channel. Also, you can check out all of the other Wizard Golf playlist videos by clicking the icon up here or the link in the description. So at the end of the last video, I mentioned that we were going to go over some short or longer pitches, but I thought that it would be best, because we are working from the hole backwards towards the tee in our exploration of golf, from scoring back to from the shortest shot to the longest shot. I thought that it would be appropriate to go over bunker play now. So we'll go over greenside bunkers because it is kind of similar to a pitch, and we'll work back from there, and then after this we'll go back to the longer pitches. So the first thing we'll talk about here is club selection. Normally for greenside bunkers I just use my sand wedge. It's called that because it's made for the sand. Nevertheless, when you do choose a club for the bunker, you want to choose a club that has bounce, as we described in the last couple of videos. The bounce is what allows you to hit the ground and for the club to bounce off of the dirt as opposed to digging into it. So whatever club you do use in the bunker, you want to use one that is designed with this bounce on it. That could be a gap wedge, or an A wedge, or a sand wedge, or even a lob wedge. I carry 4 wedges in my bag. 3 wedges with bounce, and then the pitching wedge. So I would use any of the 3 wedges, the gap, the sand wedge, or my lob wedge, which all have this similar design with the bounce. That being said, whatever wedge you have that has the highest degree of bounce is probably going to work a little bit better for you, because it will enable you to use the bounce easier without having to open the club face so much. I normally don't use my lob wedge out of the bunkers unless I need it to stop very short or very quick, or the pin is cut right next to the bunker. Normally my sand wedge is enough or is sufficient. So normally I just use my sand wedge. I'm accustomed to how it comes out and how it goes through the dirt. You just want to take one of your wedges and become familiar with how the ball comes out of the sand using that particular wedge, and then test the other ones to see which one you like the best. But oftentimes a lob wedge, I find a 60 degree or a 58 degree maybe have too little bounce and digs a little bit too much, and just might not be conducive enough for you to get the ball out often. So I recommend using a sand wedge. So now you've selected your club. Now we'll talk about the grip. For sand play, the grip is going to be, with the left hand, it's going to be the same as our other shots. The grip that I showed you in lesson 1, where the pad must be on top. If you haven't seen that, please check that out, because we will be using that grip exclusively on most of our shots. So the pad has to be on top, like so. And the left hand comes in. I like to interlock. You can overlap or even 10-finger grip, whatever's more comfortable to you. I like to interlock my grip. And it's very much in the fingers. In the pitching and chipping, I told you can have it kind of through the hand here, where the left thumb meets in between these pads here. On bunker play, I like to have this right pad of my hand kind of on top of my thumb. This allows the club to really travel through the ball. If the thumb of your left hand, as a right-handed golfer of course, is in between the pads like this, this kind of impedes how much the club can release. And in a bunker shot, we need the club to release as much as possible. So I like to have that pad very much on top of my hand like this, or on top of the thumb, not like this. The variations of my grip on my right hand usually are between this and this, somewhere in between those things, or maybe even like that. These are just some variations that I use for different shots. Normally my left hand stays the same, where I can support the weight of the club like this, where I'm not having to hold it up. I'm just using, a lever to support this lever. But the right hand, I do change according to what kind of shot I want to hit. So that being said, that's how our grip is going to be on the club. The other thing about the grip is that in the bunker play, generally speaking, we don't want the face to be square. We need the face open because we have to use the bounce. So in order to engage the bounce, we have to open the face up so that this is on the bottom, so that it's going to hit the ground like this and then bounce off the ground or off the sand and not dig into the sand. It's essential to use the bounce out of the sand on a standard lie. We will talk about adverse lies later, but for a normal bunker shot, you want to use the bounce of the club because you don't want the club to dig and get stuck into the dirt. You want to come through and hit the ball so that the bounce bounces under the ball. We hit the sand and it bounces under the ball and then blasts the ball out of the sand. Therefore, when you take your grip, the face will be open. If this is a square grip for me, you can see I've got it lined up with the flagstick. In the bunker, my grip will be more like this. Keep in mind that it's not enough, if this is a square grip, notice that it's not enough just for me to turn my hands open to open it up. That's not the same. I want to have a neutral grip and rotate the club in my hands so that the face is open. So that when I return to my hands are neutral, the face is still open. In other words, to open the face, you can't just rotate your hands open. That's not going to work. You have to rotate the club in your hands and have your standard grip. The more bounce you use, the easier it is going to be to get the ball out of the sand. So we need to have an open face to engage the bounce of the club. Also, on your grip, when I'm playing out of the bunker, I tend to grab a little bit more of the grip than I would on my chips or my pitches. I told you earlier that I tend to grab my pitches and chips almost at the handle, sometimes even up with my first finger on the shaft itself to have a lot more control. Well, out of the bunker, I tend to grab a little bit more of it because I don't want to hit it thin. I would rather hit it fat. So if the club is longer, I'll have a tendency to hit it behind the ball, which is what I want, which is desirable out of the bunker. So out of the bunker, I tend to grab the grip pretty much in the middle of the grip where I have equal space on both sides. This just gives me a good balance. And so I do grab a little bit more of the grip in the bunker to ensure that I'm going to hit behind the ball. Now we'll talk about the stance that you'll use in your bunker play. Your stance will be quite wide, actually. You want a wider stance because this allows you to sink your body a little bit lower to the ground, and you want a lot of stability here. Oftentimes in the bunker, we're not sitting or we're not standing on flat lies. The lie may be up the slope or down the slope, but you want to have somewhat of a wide stance. Having a wider stance also shallows your swing out some. So you want to have kind of a wide stance. Notice it's just out, my legs are just outside of my hips. My feet are open. I am also open with the target. I'm sitting across the target line. The ball position for a bunker shot is going to be towards the front of your stance. I normally play my bunker shots with the ball off of somewhere close to my left heel. By playing the ball position forward, this allows us to have a fairly vertical shaft lean. And with a vertical shaft lean, we get to maximize the loft of the club. So I have the club face open, and I have an open stance. Everything is open, and the ball is somewhat forward in the stance to allow me to have a vertical shaft lean. So this is what my stance would look like from the face-on view. And I'll show you from the back, as if I were going to hit towards this flag here. And I know you're not supposed to ground the club in the bunker, but I'm just showing you, demonstrating here what I'm going to do, what my stance and posture. Notice how open I am to the target. My shoulders are in this direction, pointed somewhere towards these trees on the left or even left of that. Because the face is open, the ball will tend to come off to the right. And on a bunker shot, we will be slightly cutting across the ball somewhat. We're going to discuss a little bit more about the technique in the next video. This is just the foundations of what you're going to need to do to set up to hit a bunker shot properly. And so this is what my stance and posture would look like from the bunker in this shot. There you go. Now we'll talk about weight distribution. Your weight distribution in the bunker shot. My weight distribution is rather centered at address. As I move through the shot, as with all shots, we definitely move forward through the shot and not try to fall backwards. Very rarely, if ever, do we want to be falling backwards through a shot. We want to move with the ball. Falling backwards would be like trying to hit a fadeaway shot in basketball. It's very difficult to move away from the direction in which you're trying to send the ball. So typically we want the ball to go this way. We want to move in that direction into the ball. But because my stance is wide, my weight is very centered, but I do ensure when I come back through the ball that I'm coming through into the ball downward. Weight going forward through the shot. So my weight distribution at address is quite centered, maybe slightly forward because I do want to move in that direction, but certainly through impact, you want to be moving forward through the shot. Another thing about the bunker that you often see is people digging their feet in, and they just dig their feet in. But I think a lot of people do this without even knowing why they're going to dig their feet in. Digging your feet in serves a couple of purposes. It allows you to be more planted in the ground because it gives this hole where your feet now are. But it also allows you to feel how deep the sand is, because you can move your feet in the sand and feel how fluffy or firm it is. It's rained this morning, so this sand is rather wet. I raked a little area here to make it a little bit fluffy, but this sand is somewhat heavy because it has water in it. But you can feel that by digging your feet in. I don't like to dig my feet in the sand traps because sometimes when you dig your feet in, you also sink down that far. So if I were to dig my feet in, I see some of my friends sometimes they'll dig their feet in and now all of a sudden they'll move their feet like this and now their feet are like 2 inches down in the dirt, so the ball is a lot higher now. And it makes it difficult for them to get to the ball. I don't like feeling like my feet are stuck. I like to move, so I typically do not dig my feet in very much at all. I approach the ball and I just kind of feel it. I get my feet where they're comfortable and then I take a swing at the ball and knock it out. So down the line, it's also helpful when in the bunker to have your hands rather low. Like taking a wide stance, it allows us to get closer to the ground. It's helpful to have your hands low. As we have our hands low, this promotes more of a downward blow. And it's easier to have the face open and going towards the target some by lowering the hands. Lowering the hands allows you to engage the bounce easier and keep the face a little bit square to the target so you have a wide area to hit the ball. So lower the hands down a little bit, and you don't want your knees too bent. It's going to be very hard to swing if your knees are very bent like this. So you just a normal posture where your knees are kind of straight, like this. We want to bend from the top down and then lower the hands down so we can blast this ball out of the bunker. I shall demonstrate. You see the ball blast out of the bunker very nicely. I impact the sand. The club goes into the dirt, but doesn't dig. Using these techniques, what you want to do is find yourself a practice bunker like this, and just without any balls, practice swinging into the dirt with this posture, with this technique, lowering the hands and going back and forth until you can see that the club bounces off the ground like this. Do you see the difference there? This is a good blast swing. Notice the club bounces off the ground. So if I were to hit the ball anywhere there, it's just going to go splash right up under the ball and lift it up. If the face is too square, then what happens, or you're playing the ball too back in your stance, it would look something like this. Notice how much it digs there into the bottom because we're not using the bounce. So if you're playing it in the back of your stance and with the face square, it'll dig in the dirt and stop. This is not what you want to do. You want to use the bounce so that the club comes into the ground and then splashes up, that it bounces off of the ground. I like to think oftentimes that I'm just throwing the backside of the club into the dirt. and I know that it's going to bounce up as long as this part of the club is hitting the sand. Thanks for tuning in. These are just the foundations for bunker play. Next week we're going to go over the actual kind of technique, the body motions, some ideas, and some variations later on. Thanks so much for watching. You can always check 2 of my videos here and subscribe here. Till next time.